Hello, everyone, and happy second Sunday. Yeah, I know it's Monday. I refuse to acknowledge it. You all know how I feel about Mondays. But anyway, uh, it is a good one, though, today. It started out pretty good. Yeah, I'm having a good one, and I hope everyone out there is also. It's only 4 o'clock in the afternoon here. Most of my day is not exactly gone because I do get up much later than most of you here in the States, but because I'm on a different time zone. I'm in the upside down world, I swear. I'm up all night, sleep most of the day. But I was researching and having a good time. And one of my moderators, I'd like to give a shout out. I don't want to embarrass, but Mrs. Cassandra brought me this case that we're going to talk about today. It is in California. It is the Stockton Serial Killer. And it unfolded quite quickly, actually, for serial killer cases. I mean, most of the ones that I have gone into in the past have been years and years and years. But hey, Marking, welcome. Nice to see you here. And Chill, thanks. Hi, nice to see you also. So, this Stockton Killer, well, long story short, is over the weekend, Saturday to be specific, the Stockton police did arrest a suspect. And his name is Wesley Brownlee. He's a 43-year-old black man who was found supposedly during a hunt with a gun, skulking out another victim. Okay. Um, this was actually the police department is actually giving a lot of credit to the neighborhoods and to people calling in tips and information as to how they caught him so quickly. This was an 18-month spree. And there's the reason I'm interested in it, not only because its proximity to one of my moderators who we don't want any kind of thing like this going on anywhere near anyone that we know or anyone actually in general. I mean, it had to be pretty scary. There were 5 victims. One is still alive, but there were 5 murders, all men. The one who is still alive was an attempted murder. It was a woman. Okay, and that would have been victim number 2, and they survived. But when they saw a police clip of what they're calling the shadow stalker, okay, the Stockton serial killer's kind of nickname is shadow stalker, and it's because he lurked mostly in the wee hours of the morning. All of the victims were murdered between midnight and first dawn in the morning. Only one was attacked at 10 o'clock at night, but it was still dark. So many of them are also homeless. The majority of them were Hispanic. It is targeted, it looks like. They don't know the reason or the MO yet, or rather, if they do, they're not disclosing it, which is not that unusual. This is all new. But Saturday, the arrest was made. So today we're going to talk a little bit about the case. We're going to talk about, of course, the victims, because they need to be acknowledged. The tragedies to their families needs to be shared and respected. So we will speak of them. Their names are everywhere in the press, so I won't be disclosing anything that's not already all out there, or any details. I have a rule: even if it's not in a legal document or already printed, I'm not talking about it. Like, I don't do the audio thing. I don't care what they say, like, on the television and things like that. If it's printed, I know that it's pretty well been sourced. So I will actually speak on it that way. I want to not interfere with anything that's going on. He's going to be going to court this week to be charged. His arraignment should be Tuesday from what I am reading. Hey, Charlie, thank you for being here. Oh, hey, Dan, thank you for coming. It's nice to see you also. And hey, Jax, nice to see you too. It's cool. Yeah. But that's just my, I don't know about that, Robski. It's just my way. Okay. And I'm not saying that everybody has to do it that way, but I'm not a lawyer, and I'm not even a paralegal. And I do have great respect for the process, so to speak. I find it fascinating, and I have an overwhelming respect for it. And I want to keep my fascination in the macabre and the weirdness of it in line with actual respect for what's going on. So, we're going to approach it that way. Um, so basically, I have to say alleged serial killer. Let me just get that correct. Even though everywhere they are just calling him the Stockton serial killer. Mr. Brownlee's being labeled that everywhere, and a lot of people are forgetting the word alleged and suspected. Let's just say that he is a suspect and he has been hauled in and arrested. They do feel they caught him in the act of hunting his next victim. He had a gun on him. He was skulking, he was tracking people. They watched him, and they kind of, through the tips that they were getting, they were actually saying that they actually caught, like, this is how he was probably attacking the others. Okay. Some interesting tidbits about the case that caught me was not only how fast, because 18 months with this amount of victims, I mean, that's pretty prolific. But when you hear the weird part is that between victim number 1 and the alleged attempt on victim number 2 was only a few days. But between victim number 2 and number 3, 448 days passed. Okay. And then he went on a spree, and he did 3, 4, 5, and 6. Okay. Boom, boom, boom. No more than I think no more than 6 or 7 days in between. It was actually 33 days between victim number 3 and victim number 4. And then after that, it really escalated. Now, escalations in serial killers, as if any of you watched my series with Jay, True Serial, and we went into the FBI profiling and analyzing what is a serial killer, how do they actually use the definitions, how do they actually decide what's what. And when looking at MOs and procedures and see that serial killers use, they often will say that escalation towards the end, it happens. It's actually a common thing. It's actually something they look for, and it's something that they predict. And this one escalated pretty quickly. Okay. He did, Juju, quite quickly. He escalated toward at the end, which in more than likely, because he was being talked about more often. Okay. He could have, they say often that they get hyped up about this. They got their name in the press. They're like excited, and the thrill of it is even more, and it escalates more. They need to do it more and more to get it. They want to hear that name. They want to know what's going on. They're making their point. Okay. Whatever the high is that they get from them. And each serial killer gets something different. Each killer gets something different from their crime. Okay. So who's to say what Wesley Brownlee's actually motivation was? Because not everyone was homeless, not everyone was Hispanic, but all of the ones at the end in the escalation were. Okay. Most of them were middle-aged men. Okay. There was one of the youngest victims was only 21 years old, and that seems to be quite tragic at such a young age. All murder, of course, is tragic. In all of those that lost their lives, we need to be respectful of. Their families are suffering, but their families are also grateful at the expedition, as how fast they were able to get someone charged with the case and get this man off the streets, get this suspected killer off the streets, because anyone who lived in that area of Stockton was nervous as hell going out. No one should go out at night. Like, they were putting warnings out. Don't go out by yourself. Don't be out there late at night, the wee hours of the morning, or some, place you don't want to be anywhere. They call him the shadowstalker because of how he approached his victims. Okay. But before I go into his actual MO, let me tell you a little bit more about Wesley Brownlee. Wesley Brownlee is 43 years old. Okay. And I actually can give you an actual visual here. Instead of just looking at me, meet Wesley Brownlee. This is released by the Stockton Police Department. when they did their when they did their announcement that they had arrested. Uh, they did that on Saturday, this Saturday, okay, October 15th. Yeah. And he is being accused of killing 6 people. And the police said that they were able to zero in on him because of all the tips that came through from the community. A surveillance team was watching him, and they followed him as he was driving around and watching others. And they watched his pattern and determined early Saturday morning that he was out there, and I quote, on a mission to kill. He was out hunting rather, said Chief Stanley McFadden, and that is the Stockton police chief. He was stopped by the team that was following him in an area called Village Green near Winslow Avenue, and it was approximately 2 a.m. in the morning, his typical hunting time that they approached him. He was wearing dark clothing and a mask around his neck, which had been reported as someone stalking in the area multiple times. He was also allegedly armed with a firearm when he was taken into custody. And there are circulating a picture of the gun. But I'm not going to show it, YouTube and all of that. Plus, there's different reporting on it. Some say it's a gun like it. Others say it is the gun. So in that way, there's too much speculation there for me to show it. Sorry, not sorry. Plus, I don't need YouTube coming at me. Who knows, right? So anyway, he's lived on and off in Stockton most of his life. Okay. Yep, you'll see the weapon in court is right, Juju. If the one that was actually on him, you will actually see in court because it'll be evidence, Yeah, this is true. This is true. We don't need to see it now, right? But anyway, he lived on and off in Stockton. One of his victims, the actual first victim in April of 2021, which his name is Juan Vasquez Serrano. He was only 40 years old. He actually lived in Oakland, not in Stockton. And the murder actually happened in Oakland. That was the very first one. Okay, that was on April 10th of 2021. And it was just a few days later, around the 16th, that Natasha Latour, a 41-year-old Black woman, was accosted and shot 10 times in the wee hours, 3:20 a.m. in the morning, was approached by a man wearing a black mask in dark clothing who just came up, accosted her, 10 shots, left her for dead. She survived. And when she saw the reporting just recently in the last couple of months in regards to this Stockton serial killer that they were looking for, the shadowstalker, she recognized the footage and she came forward with her incident. But she's very lucky to have survived 10 shot. He shot her 10 times. So he's serious. He's serious when he comes for you. He was definitely serious. Yes, I did, Jujubee. I did say that several of them are homeless. Not all of them, or at least they're not indicating. The families haven't indicated. Some of the families had said that at the time of the murder, the victims were homeless. Okay. And then there are several that are suspected to be homeless, but it's not confirmed. So we can't say all of them at this time. Okay. The majority are Hispanic, especially those in the spree at the end during the escalation. They are all Hispanic. Okay. And they are quite closer together. All right. After the first two, the first actual murder of Juan Vasquez Serrano and the attempted murder of Natasha Latour, the next one that happened was a white man, 35 years old, by the name of Paul Yaw. That happened on July 8th of this year, 2022, 448 days after the last. Now, why that delay, we don't know. Okay. But there is some speculation that perhaps he was charged, perhaps he had other things going on. He could have been facing some other legal issues because Wesley Brownlee has a record. And even in Alameda County, right there in Alameda County, He is in January of 1999. He got 2 years for possession of drugs for sale. And in December of 2001, he got 3 years for transporting those drugs for sale. And he had been discharged from parole in May of 2006, according to California records. It's also said that he may have some records in Arizona that they're digging up, that there are other states involved that he could have had some records. So he could have been out of state for those 448 days. Who knows? But he was quiet for a year plus. And then murder victim number 3 was Salvador Booty Jr. Okay, and he was actually indicated as one of the homeless. He was only 43 years old. He is the one that was murdered at 10 o'clock at night, which is a little bit out of the window of the rest of them. Almost all are indicated as early morning, 2 a.m., 3 a.m. in the morning, around the same time that he had been captured for his arrest. Um, uh, you know, he was only 43 years old. That happened on August 11th. Okay. 33 days after the July 8th killing of Paul Yaw. Not less than 20 days later, his next victim was Jonathan Hernandez Rodriguez, also Hispanic, only 21 years of age, said to have been discovered in the wee hours of the morning, dead of multiple gunshot wounds. 5 days on September 21st, we have our next victim, which is Juan Cruz, who was 52 years old, also Hispanic. 4:30 in the morning, they're saying he was shot on September 21st. In less than 6 days after that, Lawrence Lopez Sr., the last victim, 54 years of age, Hispanic also, September 27th, found in the early hours of the morning, dead of multiple gunshot wounds. All of these are actually in Stockton, except for the Oakland killing. And I actually have a map for you. I'm sure you're tired of looking at his face. I know I am. So, first, let me introduce you to some of the people that we have been talking about. I will show you some of the information that I've been able to gather. This is Natasha. She survived 10 gunshot wounds. Okay. I got to give her props. And was not so traumatized that she wanted to forget the whole thing. When she saw the image of the suspected shadow stalker plastered all over the news lately, all over the television, all over the papers, without even seeing his face, she says she knew that that was him. And being alive, she's going to be for the prosecution. This is going to be evidence. She's going to be able to give testimony. She's going to be able to attest to motive, things he said, things he did. And those 10 bullets, I do believe, maybe. Usually when someone goes to a hospital with a gunshot wound, there's a whole procedure. So there was a report about this shooting when it happened. And if those bullets were saved, and this is how they may be. I can't say for sure because it's not been documented yet. I don't have the indictment or the warrant that will list out like all of this yet. But it is kind of laying out that they do have enough DNA and evidence as far as weaponry. They've got a lot of bodies with bullets in them. Okay. They've got a lot of bodies consistently in the same area with bullets in them. And they have a victim who survived an attempted murder of 10 gunshot wounds, and those bullets must be somewhere, and we'll see how that all plays out. But meet Natasha Latour. Okay. Latasha was actually looking at, and I'll show you, I actually have the shadow picture of our little our man. Yeah. What you may have seen in the papers already, if any of you have been following this, is this shadowy, skirking around motels in the dark man. That man there, the shadow stalker. Now that is who they're saying is Wesley Brownlee. Okay. This is what he's accused of. He's the alleged stalker, okay, the shadow stalker, the alleged serial killer from Stockton. But this is the image from the Stockton Police Department that they put everywhere, from CCTV, from outside of apartment buildings and motels in the town itself. I mean, the whole place. You can understand that when multiple murders happen close together, as those did towards the end, I mean, everybody gets on edge. So, there's cameras going on. People got their home. People are submitting things. They see people walking around outside. You're walking your dog. You probably ended up on CCTV over in the police department because some neighbor didn't know who you were. Like, that's how it happens. That's how it should happen, because that's protecting everybody else. I mean, this is how all the information kept flooding in on him, and to help them narrow it down. They are in the urban. They're near he goes into the shadows of parks and things like that, but they're kind of like, I guess it's inland. It's not woodland acres to where there's like nobody else around. These are populated neighborhoods that just have parks and parklands and areas that you can go to, that the homeless may go to be off the beaten path to sleep. Facilities like that, Robski, not exactly, what you would call wooded areas, off that aren't populated. This was populated areas, regular neighborhoods, the regular, and just air. But they call him the shadow stalker because he went to the darkest parts of it, the alleys, the behind the buildings, the behind the schools, the playgrounds, okay, the park grounds, okay, that were shut down for the night. I'm not sure, dog. What a strange question. And no, I have seen nothing on that. I have no idea. I don't see anything posted from him to declare, but who knows? We're gonna find out more as this progresses. But currently, I can't answer that question. Um, but it is interesting how the people actually came forward to help with this. It's actually good. And Juju has a good comment here. Imagine what relief that woman must feel to have the man suspected of shooting you 10 times in custody. I get a little emotional about that. I feel you, because can you imagine this whole year going and not knowing who shot you? And like, can it happen again? Is he going to come finish the job? Does he know I'm alive? Like, why did he do it? Like, all of these things, the night terrors alone. I'm sure that now that he's in custody, um, I'm sure she might be able to sleep a little better. I mean, even more when it's actually convicted that this is actually the guy. Because remember, this is all alleged right now. This is what he's accused of. We don't know if we no evidence. We don't even have an indictment yet. Okay, Tuesday we'll get the rest of that. But yeah, let me show you. So I'm going to show you now. Actually, you're asking me about the area. I actually have somewhat of an answer there for you on that, Robski, because I actually have the map of where everybody was found. And just take a moment, Here we go. This will indicate, and hopefully this is big enough. Let me see if I can make it just a little bit bigger for you. Yeah. Okay. So you can see my cursor, hopefully, when I bring it up. Okay. All right. So here is Latasha. This is where she was found. Now you see, like, you could see that this is all neighborhoods and wooded area. Like, this is very populated. Okay. This is not like off in the woods anywhere. This is right there in Stockton. Besides this man that was found in Oakland, the first one. That was Miguel Salvador. Like, what? Well, they have that listed. But anyway, Natasha Latour was shot here. Okay. Our next first confirmed victim in Stockton was Paul Alexander Yaw, and he was here. But this is all these local, this one big area. After that, it was Juan Cruz. We went to Salvador William Dubody and then Jonathan Hernandez Rodriguez. And um, in September, there were two. One of them is not, they say that Juan Cruz was September 21st, uh, but here they're listing it as July 21st. That is not correct. This is September 21st. Okay, this map is incorrect in just this wording right here. Juan Cruz and Lorenzo Lopez were pretty close together within a couple of weeks and pretty close together into where they actually found the bodies. The other one, the one from Oakland, was Juan Vasquez Serrano. They have it as Miguel Vasquez Salvador. Mm-hmm. And that's not correct, his name. Now, why the names are going back and forth is very okay. Unfortunately, if you're not familiar with Hispanic names, people will take the middle name and move it over to the first name and back and forth, and it can be written in multiple ways depending on your main language, Spanish or English, that you're playing. So this is probably why some of the names are mixed up here, and that's just speculation on my part. I'm just trying to say like why they're messing up the name here. But the reason I wanted to show it is because they were pretty precise, and it showed exactly that it was a populated neighborhood. There's not wooded area. The other maps that I have on it, and I can pull a couple of those up to show you the difference, won't actually show you the kind of area that it was. I hadn't intended to show that particular one, but I can show you now where he was caught. Let's see. See if I make that a little bit bigger. You see how these are houses, okay? And this is where he was caught. But you see how there's all these like wooded areas around these developments and all? These are the shadows he's talking, like he's walking these paths at night. If there's anybody sleeping or he runs across anybody, apparently those ended up to be his victims, okay? So, but it is in a definitely populated area. Whoops. Oh God, forget it. Okay. Forget that one. This is not working very well. I hit the Instagram button. It almost took me out of here. There you go. Now you can really see it. You see, this is just the regular street here, and this is where he was. He was skulking in this area in the shadows here, looking for his next victim. They state that he is suspected of looking for his next victim right there. Okay. He was driving. They watched his pattern and determined early this morning he was on a mission to kill. He was out hunting, McFadden said, who is the police chief of Stockton. Okay. This is Winslow Drive, they said. Winslow Way and Village Green Drive, which are the two roads there. And like I said before, he was wearing dark clothing with a mask around his neck and was armed with a firearm in his waistband. Police confirmed. Now, the police are saying that they got a firearm from him. And all right, I'm not going to show it. No, I'm sticking to my guns. Nope. Done. That way I'm not tempted. Away with that. Okay. Not a good idea. Okay. But let me just check the chat now for questions, because I'm sure this is new and there's a lot based on. Okay. Mrs. Cassandra said the woman that survived says she came out of her tent to see what was the noises she heard. Yes, she was sleeping outside in a tent. I believe she was homeless at the time, right, Mrs. Cassandra? That's why she was in a tent. She was those were her accommodations in that area. And that is, I did also read that. And he shot her 10 times. Yep. Okay, let's see what other questions we have. All right. I can't imagine her fear. Apparently, the incident changed her life. She's now clean and sober. Yes, and she's no longer living in a tent, from what I heard. It's dangerous out there. And I don't mean to make light of it. I can understand how that really altered everything, everything for her. And I'm hoping she has some peace now that she has helped them. She actually contributed. She, in a way, doesn't that give you the control back when you're actually contributing to tracking down who did this to you? So, there we go. Um, I'm actually glad that she's now clean and sober, and I'm hoping she's having some peace in that she's able to sleep and with helping them out, and that when she follows this case, in hopefully with the evidence all in place, they have the right man, and then this is over for her, and the families can get some justice to what happened to their loved ones. All right. I do understand, Dog. Like, Dog had asked, did the killer claim to be Christian? And the suspected killer has not made any statements of that nature that have been reported. Matter of fact, I don't see anything that he stated yet, at all. Uh, he says he asked if he was Christian, as a lot of mass killers plead insanity by citing God or Satan worship, whispered to them to do it. And you know what? Once he has a lawyer and we go through the indictment and the arraignment, and we start to hear some of the evidence, who knows? We may. We don't know. We don't know if this will be a case that they'll allow to be televised. We'll see it on Law and Crime or somewhere else reporting on it. I'm sure there's going to be more. I'm sure even though they've caught them rather quickly for a serial killer, the judicial process can be painfully slow. So we'll have to see what happens in the next coming months. But I'll be following it. We have names and we can track cases here now. And so we'll find out. And that will be interesting to find out, because you are right. That has been very common in serial killer cases. Okay. T. King, it will be interesting to see if he had any connections to any of his victims. That is the thing. Besides being homeless, some of quite a few, including the survivor, were homeless at the time. Okay, and then towards the end we have Paul Yall was white, Natasha is a black woman, and Paul Yall was a middle-aged white man. Everyone else is Hispanic and middle-aged, 40 to 50 years old. Besides the young one, there is one 21 years old. And we're wondering, like, what could that be? Like, why did he go? Is it because he was homeless? Is it because it was the timing? Is it a happenstance kind of thing? Is it just who he comes upon? It's going to be interesting to see how they lay the case out and what evidence they have against Mr. Brownlee. I am quite interested to find out. I'm intrigued because, it's a serial killer. There's multiples here. There's obviously he has some kind of thing that was motivating him. It's not a one and done. It's not a passion killing, like, or anything like that. It wasn't like during the course of a robbery or anything. This was just walk up and shoot you type assault. From what the survivor is portraying to everyone in the papers, to the police, what they are portraying is it was just like, she went out there to see what the noise was, and boom, he saw her, and that was it. Like 10, done. Okay, all right. And they'll use anything, including diagnosis or attempted diagnosis of mental illness or learning disabilities such as autism. Well, that is a double-edged sword, because it does look like they're grasping at straws and they're just making stuff up and this and that. But let's not forget, in murder cases, the death penalty can be put, and life in prison. And like they're fighting any way they can to stay out, because once they're in, they're going to be in there forever. Okay. And it is the attorney's job to actually portray the best defense they can for an alleged, for a suspect, for an alleged murderer, for the defendant. That's their job. And they're going to do the best they can. And if they think that he's acting a little, they're going to send him for an evaluation. They're going to make sure he's competent to stand trial. They're going to make sure that the trial itself doesn't get overturned because they didn't dot all the I's and cross all the T's. Murder trials are serious, serious business. And they don't, the way that the town, everybody was so fearful. This is a serial killer. You don't want him released now. Now his name is out there. You don't want him released. I'm sure they have plenty of evidence that we will all be disclosed later, because they would not have arrested him with the chance that he was just going to walk out, and put that fear back in Stockton, back in the town, in the neighborhood, in the county, in the whole general area. They're not going to do that. Mm-mm. And it's going to ruin their case. And I'm sure that as much as they wanted to get him, that they were careful, because they use keywords here. During our surveillance, they followed him, they tracked him, they made sure they had the right guy, they made sure they caught him doing things similar to what they think he was doing in the course of the murder. This is all evidence. They get to all report that. They get to all write that all down, put it in an affidavit, and submit it to the court. Those officers get to testify to what they saw him do prior to arrest. Okay, all of it comes in. It looks very carefully done to me so far. So far, this is just a preliminary look. Mrs. Cassandra will tell you, I've only known about this for a couple of days. I've only been reading about it for the last 48 or so. And legally, I don't even have any of the black and whites from any attorney, any judge, any charging official yet. So we don't know what the exact evidence is. Only the statements that are being released all over the place. The Stockton's police department is very pleased about this, and the police chief has been speaking very graciously to the community for helping, very proudly about the conduct of all the officers involved in the actual the actual capturing and the arrest of the suspect, and rightly so. It's kudos to them, kudos to them. Yes, Jujubee, this really does sit with me. He was out hunting. That gives me chills. Yes, they said he was on a mission. He was armed, Sue Elliott asks, were all these people found in close date range? No, as I reported before, the first one, which was in Oakland and not in Stockton, happened in July of 2021. The surviving victim, Natasha LaFleur, also happened in April. I'm sorry, not July. April of 2021. Okay, and in that she also survived 10 bullet wounds. Okay, and after that, there were 448 days before the next victim, which was Paul Yaw in July 8th of 2022. Okay, 448 days. And yet the whole spree is only 18 months. So after Paul Yaw, things just escalated. We got a month that goes by, he does one. Then we got a couple of weeks, he does another. And then towards the end, it was only like 6 days in between. But those 5 at the end happened pretty close together. Okay. So the only thing that is grouped together, Sue Elliott, would be the area in which they are all found. They're all in that residential area over there in Stockton. I had pulled up the map previously. It is a residential area with parks and areas around it to which he was accused of stalking and finding his victims. And there is a map. If you go back a little bit, you'll see the map I put up of where they found them. Okay. He had a big gap between the first 2 victims and the last victims, I believe, and the last few he escalated. Yes, it was only like 30 days and then 2 weeks and then 6 or 7 days. Yep. Robsky says, if he fancied himself as a hunter, then I'm a little surprised that he didn't collect trophies. We don't know, Robsky. They're not reporting on the conditions of the bodies at autopsy. I haven't seen it yet. We don't know. This is the kind of stuff with serial killer stuff that I get interested in. MOs, motive, trophies, the way they all do that. Hello, William. Thank you for being here. Hey, Dark Side. I'm nice to see you here. I'm going through now the chat, and I can see everybody who showed up. I'm sorry I didn't say hello when you entered. Okay. It sounds a lot like a Dirty Harry movie. Yeah. No one survived in those movies, though. Nobody. Yeah. Yes, William, they've caught him, or the alleged shadow stalker has been caught. They have a suspect. They have arrested him. His name is Wesley Brownlee, 43 years old, and he has lived in Stockton on and off all along. As a resident. It does sound like he's a nutcase. I'd like to know what else you've read about him. I'm not finding anything that he is saying, but I do believe that they said that he was stalking people. He went on a mission to hunt, and the one survivor who has been giving the biggest interviews right now on what he did and said during her assault was that the one cold fact that would be like he's a little extreme is that she was shot 10 times, and she survived. I mean, that's unbelievable as it is. I mean, thankfully, so it's believable that she survived, but it's kind of like, wow, 10 gunshot wounds. Yeah, that's phenomenal. And she assisted in his in giving the information that she did, in coming forward when she saw the news reports. She actually has assisted them in tracking him down. Okay. Juju says, I do appreciate when the police hold the evidence and facts of the case close to their vest. Save it for the court. Thank you, Juju B. Although I love this stuff and I love reading it, I do like reading it more when it's actually a case in court. And I don't want to wait until the courtroom. I want to get the filings, in discovery, because I want to see what they have. But I also do appreciate. I was fascinated. Do you remember Barry Morphew's case, the disappearance of Susan Morphew, his wife? She was gone for a year, disappeared on Mother's Day. No one saw her. The last person to see her alive was her husband. They were so sure. They put out a 141-page warrant indictment on him and listed all the evidence. I was fascinated. I said, oh my God, 141 pages. 141 pages of evidence. But here's the crust of that. He's been dismissed of all charges, okay? It was all circumstantial. They made a case in 141 pages, and they did put him in jail temporarily awaiting trial for murder, but then everything did end up getting dismissed because of the dotting of I's and the crossing of T's. In that case, which you can go back into the history of, I've got a playlist down there of all these true crime updates that we do, all the legal updates, all the true crime stories. In his case, what happened was there was DNA found that wasn't turned over to the defendants fast enough, and they didn't enter it into evidence that there could be other suspects. Because they narrowed only on him as the probable and were eliminating other pieces of physical evidence that may have indicated other people, they got into a little bit of a quandary there, okay? And then there was some stuff about prosecutors coming and going, and prosecutors telling people don't talk about it, this, and don't do that. And he had a very good legal team. And every single piece of misstep was used against them, and the whole case got tossed. Go. And although I think there was enough there to charge him, and I do, and it personal biased, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not accusing you, Barry Morphew, of anything. I'm just going to say there was quite a lot there with you with bags of stuff that you were throwing out and cleaning things up and all of your shady activities that I might say maybe you should have answered a little clearer or some of the questions, especially when you kept changing your story, because I saw all those depositions. I saw all those questions, and you kept changing your story. Every time they presented you with more evidence, you came up with a whole big story around it, and the stories kept changing and changing, especially the one about the raccoon and the rifle. I mean, anyway, you got to go play it. I know some of you don't know what the heck I'm talking about here, but as you can tell, I was fascinated by the story, so you might be too. So go check it out. It's almost as good as the new one with Murdaugh, which is seems to be a lifelong history of nothing but shenanigans. legal mess-ups and shenanigans, including quite a few murders. Yeah, that one is going to be lit, and that's going to be coming to trial, like hopefully within the year. That's a mess there, absolutely. But let me get back to this one and questions you may have on our current serial killer. Okay. Hey, Peter. So nice to see you. I hope you're doing well. I hope you're doing really well. It's nice to see you here and in blue. It really is. Okay. Yeah, Juju, another question. Keep them coming, Juju. Would we ever describe someone who hurts and takes out people as anything but a nutcase? True. This is true. Accurate description. Yes. I mean, just being able to do that. Just being able to do that. I agree. That's rough. Definitely, definitely. Yeah, we could. Yeah, we could say that. He didn't have to say anything, right? And the turtle moves. Surely he would have tried collecting off the one who survived. You know what? I haven't heard a statement of that yet, but I'm gonna check into it, turtles, because you're thinking like me. Serial killer here. Let's go. Let's find out all the weird stuff that they're about. Yeah, I know. I'm a bit nerdy about it, but you're all here too, murder minions. You know what it's like. I know you do. That's why we have those little minions up there with the little murderers and serial killers on it, because like it's the thing, people are all fascinated about this stuff. I like to focus on the legal end of it, the outcomes, but I'm also completely intrigued by the psychological and the FBI profiling of it and all of that. I could really get into it. And I'm hoping that there'll be some things here. Not that I hope anything horrible happened to the victims or whatever, but I do want to learn more about why someone gets to this place. What was his motivation? What was he thinking? Not in justification, but just in like, oh my God, that's fascinating, psychologically warped. I want to know about it. Seriously, just like everyone. Oh. Dog says he sounds more cold and calculated than an opportunistic nutcase. He does. Yes, to me he does, because first of all, he successfully stayed away from it for 448 days. And I have to be honest, that intrigues me. Where was he? What was he doing? Why was he not satisfying his urge? Or here's the other thing, and we don't know yet. Okay. And remember, like I'm not talking about a legal case yet, because there isn't one. He's going to be charged. There will be one. He will be charged, but I don't have any of the facts here of the evidence. Okay. I don't even have the arraignment where they say what he's going to be accused, like exactly what he's going to be charged with. Okay. There's speculation he's going to be charged for all the murders, and he's going to be charged for the attempted murder of Natasha. Okay. But the rest of it, also the weapon that he was, of course, caught with. Okay. Of course, he's going to be charged with all of that. That's obvious. Okay. But what about all the other stuff that they think they know that he did? Like, I'm fascinated. I want to know. I want to know what happened. And I need to see it in black and white. And we will. But right now we could speculate. Like, he doesn't seem to be opportunistic. It seems like he just was out there, and if he came across you, boom. Like that part, I mean, opportunistic. I don't know if he stalked them for days, but during that 448 days he was missing, are there other bodies that we don't know of? Are there other cases that haven't been attributed to him that could be, after further discussion with him, perhaps, maybe a confession, maybe leading us to more? It's happened before. I mean, this is just starting. He was just arrested on Saturday. We got a bumpy ride ahead of us. Like, hopefully there will be more coming. Hopefully, hopefully it won't shut down like the shopping cart killer did. Like, boom, that was it. Like, that's all. That's it. That's it. That's all we got. He did it. It's done. That's all we got. He's still waiting trial. He's still sitting in jail awaiting trial, the shopping cart killer. But, still need to be safe and take precautions. Absolutely, Mrs. Cassandra. I don't want to see you out at night alone, ever. I don't want to see anybody out alone at night, ever. The world's a crazy place, precaution. And I don't want to make, seem like it's so fearful and like, tell everybody it's just not safe out there. Don't do it. No, no. I just mean precautionary. It's always a good idea. Yes, agree. It makes me nervous. Like my mom can take care of herself, but always texting and checking on her. And if she does far rides, I talk to her on her drive home. And yes, like a caring family that you would, especially women alone on a road. I'm all for that. Okay, I'm all for that. They are the most targeted class. Driving alone at night as a female. There you go. All right. I'm glad you do that. And look how that turned out for them. I believe circumstantial evidence is evidence. They leapt too soon with Barrymore. Yes. I wish you and I were talking then. We would have had some conversations, man. I was all up in that. And you're true. And it's also your previous contact. I think they could have gotten Barry Morphew if they had executed due diligence and been a bit more patient. Dot those I's and cross those T's. I'm with you, Juju. I'm with you on that, because like when you read it, there was so much circumstantial. And yes, cases can be, Jay from True Serial and I used to debate about this all the time. He said, no crime without a body. I don't care what you say. Like he said, no body, it ain't going to fly. And I'm like, no, I've seen circumstantial cases where the body is not around and they have been prosecuted efficiently. And I proved it with the acid bath killer because, listen, that case that, because Jay and I had this debate. So the acid bath killer was a man who he decided to become a serial killer when he was really a scam artist, okay? And he actually was trying to take money from the elderly and this and doing all these scams, but then people would report him and he'd get arrested and he'd go to jail for 10 years. And so he got tired of going to jail. So while he was in jail, he came up with this idea, well, if I just get rid of the bodies, they can't report me. And there you go. So he had this scam of where he really did put them in vats of acid and try to dissolve them. But not being the smartest tool in the shed, he used to empty that vat right there outside the warehouse in the grass. Okay. And he never used to check it. And so like he would let everything like go down into the grass. Well, there was like when he was caught, there was DNA everywhere. And there was like feet and fingers and things like that. Because apparently he was sloppy. Yeah, he was very sloppy. It is not exactly smart, but no bodies though. That's how I like went back at Jay about the no body thing, because they knew he was doing it and they didn't have a body, but they were still able to get him. They're still able to get him. If you can get DNA, if you could prove he was there, had a gun in his hand and he shot somebody witnessed it and then the body disappeared. I mean, there you go. Or people witnessed him going into a room that only there's one entrance, and then there was like all this noise and a shot, and then the person was never saw again except for him. I mean, you kind of like can lead up to this stuff. I realize it's circumstantial, but there's a way to prove it. Okay, there is a way to prove it without a body. I do believe that you can get convicted of murder without a body. I do. Yep. Let me just check a little bit more. We're coming up to the end of this. Put in your questions. I do want to answer what I do know about this so far. All right. Oh, yes. Oh, this is a good question. Sleet, and welcome. Nice to see you here. I wonder if he only perpetrated in that area or was he more mobile? Well, he was in Oakland, okay, and he was in Stockton, and he has charges in Arizona and Alameda County. He's been convicted. Like he's been other places. Where was he for those 448 days? Good question. This I want to know. Like, was he somewhere else? And there are other cases that have to be tied into the Stockton shadowstalker case. Okay. It's been, yes, William Wesley Brownlee is his name, 43 years old. And he was arrested on Saturday in Stockton by the Stockton Police Department, and it's all over the place. They've got clips of them speaking about it. They have his picture everywhere. In the beginning of this video, I showed him right from the video that the police department did themselves. Okay. Mrs. Cassandra says they were working with the Chicago police. They thought he could be their suspect too, but think But I think since Chicago has said he isn't. In other words, they're not coming forward right now. Right now, they're not linking the two together. But I would be, you know what? I'm going to go look at that. Mrs. Cassandra, I need to find out the Chicago area because, I'm going to go see if the time frame matches up to that 448 days. Like, yeah, I'm curious. I'm very curious. I'm being speculative. These aren't facts. This is all allegation, this is just true crime stuff. This is the stuff that you want to look at and you want to see, you know, you know, you just, you want to find out. Like I want respect and justice for the victims. Absolutely. I want their families to find out as much as they can as to what happened to their loved ones. And when something like this happens, it's only human nature that you want to know why. You want to know what was this man doing? Okay, this alleged serial killer. What was he doing? Like why? Okay, that's a question that we need answered. Okay. Hey, Never Darling, how are you? Yeah, I just heard about it recently also, Never Darling, and I'm very curious about this unfolding. Hello, Commander. Nice of you to be here. I didn't need to see it snowing to know it snowed, said Juju B. The snow on the ground is circumstantial evidence, but I am confident in the conclusion that it snowed. Also, you can extrapolate from that it's cold, okay? Right? And all these things, if you touch it, if you mold it, like you could build a snowman, like you can go on and on, right? From the circumstantial evidence, a case can be built based on all the outside facts and things that are solidly known. I get you, Jujubee. Great analogy, dear. Thank you. This is true. This is true. And you're with me on that, and you would have had fun with Jay on that one because he's adamant. He's like adamant, like about that stuff. Even though most of the serial killers he follows, like the bodies, like they really didn't lead to the capture. Yeah. Commander, of course, with the science. Yeah, things like lime and more basic chemicals on the pH scale are better at dissolving human bodies than straight acid. You're right. You're right. Lime is the number one. Okay. Lime is so popular in there with everyone that when you think of lime now, almost everybody thinks of disposing of a body. It's like, at least in the crowd of people I'm hanging out with lately. It's like, really. So, I think it would help a lot if they could link him with other cases in a conclusive way. It would, although, hey, we've got 6 here, Sleet. That is almost upon, if they can convict it and even a handful of them, 1 or 2, he's away for life, right? He's gone. Okay. 1 can put you away for life. The important part is like, he's off the street. Okay. If it's him, he's off the street and that he cannot terrorize anybody else at this time. The worst thing that could happen right now is another murder within the next 2 weeks that they attribute to the shadow stalker, because then the whole case is going to fall apart. But I'm pretty sure they would not have picked him up if they didn't have really good evidence, Thank you, Mrs. Cassandra. I'll go look. But boy. Yeah, this is in Stockton, Neverly Darling. This is actually in Stockton, okay, in the neighborhoods in that area. And they call him the shadow stalker. It's the Stockton serial killer, and they call him the shadow stalker. There was one in Oakland, but far enough, not in your neighborhood, apparently. Far enough away. And I know, Mrs. Cassandra, you're darn too close in Sacramento. And Robski, yes, you put the lime in the coconut, but it doesn't dissolve a body. But it could, it could. Yeah, that's what I mean, Sleet. Like, there's enough there. Like, there is definitely enough there. Let me just hide that one. There's definitely enough there with the amount of bodies that we have already, the victims. Okay, obviously the bullets, we know of at least 10. From the survivor of the second attack. Okay. And Sue Elliott reminds us that she had the Green River Killer where she lived, and her husband's coworker lived next door to him. Would have never known. You know, they say that about Dahmer. Like, Dahmer is one of those serial killers that I was fascinated with, not because of what he did. Believe me, nah, that all creeped me out. I'm not really thrilled about the body parts things or anything like that. What fascinated me with is how much he contributed to everyday life in the neighborhood. His neighbors loved him. The elderly, he shopped for them. They helped him with stuff out of their cars. He would walk your dog. He was like not personable, but if he did associate with you, he seemed to be a participating, giving kind individual in the neighborhood. No one would have suspected him. He was a nice young man. Mm. Yep. I'll look, Mrs. Cassandra. I haven't looked yet. I didn't, Yeah. Monster is going to be on that. You know what? I Here's what I think about. Somebody asked me in DMs just the other day what I thought about serial killer documentaries. Um, and Netflix has been doing quite a few of them. And matter of fact, Murdaugh's on trial, and they already did one. There's already one up on him. It's all over cable TV. I I think while it's going on, you need to stay out of the like media, please. Like you can report on it, but do you have to make these documentaries because you take license, you make them all look good and this and that, and like the jury hasn't been pulled on the Murdaugh trial yet. So how are we going to find people that haven't seen that? Like come on. I get it's a free country, you can do what you want, but a little bit of sensibility would be nice. Bear, rose-colored glasses, living in that dream world. But yeah, I'm not giving it up. I'm gonna act like that's the way it should be because I really think that's the way it should be, and I'm stubborn. But yeah, they need to act a little bit better about that. I don't think that portraying the serial killer as so damn fascinating, although that's what hooks us. And that's what we want to see. We want to know all the details. We want to know, but they make them personable and likable and like they pull you in. And there's not enough on the victims. Like, you have to remember the victims' families here. I think it's disrespectful to those that are left behind, those that had actually lost someone, to the victims themselves, when they portray these people as like enigmas of fascination and like, like, oh, this, that, and they humanize them. I would rather they don't. They don't need 15 minutes of fame. Okay. And if you do them, please give all the money to a victims group or the victims themselves or people that truly suffered, because you should not be making money on the backs of other people suffering. Period. Okay. Enough said about that. All right. Gigi said, if I had lived next door to Ariel Castro, I would have had to have serious therapy for my guilt, if not catching on that something was amiss. I get you. I get you. Like, how do people do? It, and Sue says, I like documentaries after all he's done to see how close they got it. But the victims' families, I don't like it. Yeah, I know. I know. I know. That's the part. Ariel Castro was a good, yeah, you're right. They just portrayed him as like wonderful, right? Mm. The victims' families have been very outspoken about the film, and I don't blame them, Kim. I'd be outright furious. I would, because even that is the fascination with Dahmer, that he was like presented as such a likable person, and that's what they said in court too. And I guess that's why they did the documentary the way that they did. Okay, but they should have put more of the victims like in what it meant to the families and all. Why aren't there documentaries about that? Like, I know it's sad, right? It's really sad. And people don't like to focus on the sad things. But these people had to pick up their lives and carry on and look for justice after quite a bit of time. It took a bit of time. And that's a struggle there too. Like, why aren't they focusing on that? Like, that was an accomplishment to get through that, to carry on, to live every day, right? With that battle ahead of them, with not knowing. Hmm? Yeah, I mean, to me, that's a good story. Maybe it won't make you as much money, but it's a good story. Come on, like, yeah, I know, like, and I know that sounds hypocritical of me to say don't profit off of this kind of stuff when here I am doing a true crime and legal update about killer, okay, with victims involved, okay, but I assure you, like for me, I'm not making anything of it. I am not trying to exploit the victims. I am not trying to make big dollars, millions, whatever. I'm trying to run a show for true crime and legal updates because I'm fascinated as a hobby. Okay. And I'm not trying to preach it then. I just think the way they did it was wrong. Okay. I know that everybody has a right to make a living reporting on these and talking about it and doing with it. That's not what I mean. Okay. So don't take me wrong. Like, that's not what I mean. They can. It was the way that they were just like making him like so great, and it was kind of dismissive to the victims, and that's what I mean. Like, on their suffering the money was made, and that kind of bothered me. Okay. Oh yes, Jujubee. I think I know which one you're talking about. She listens to a true crime podcast where they don't use the killer's name; they only name the victims, and they actually clearly say that they do that because of they want the victims. Uh, they want to be respectful to the victims. They want the victims to get justice, and they don't want people to forget the victims' names. Here's the thing: can anybody name the names of Jeffrey Dahmer's victims? All those people who lost their lives, or any of the family members who are suffering because of it. No, you can't. It don't come to mind right away. If it does, you're better than I, because you've looked into it and you made sure you knew. Or me, I can't recall a single one because it's not in there in the paper. It's not all over the place. Nobody's actually putting that there. Now, some of them are do it that way because they want to be respectful to the victims, and others just because they're focusing on the serial killer. And it could be very traumatizing. I agree always. Right. Mm. I'm interested to look at that to see what it's going to be like, Jujubee. If you know who's where it's going to be, could you let me know? And that is the Orrin and Orson Welles trial. That's great. Okay, and I think it does start within the week or so. It's supposed to start like this month for sure. Mm. Okay. All right. So on that, oh, everybody, if you take a time, if you enjoy the content, please just like, comment, share the video if you'd like, spread it around, let people know I'm here. That would be good. But otherwise than that, it's been really great chatting with you, and to bring a different case. We've been covering a lot of Masterson and and Manson and Murdaugh and Valo Daybell, and they've been going on and on and on. It was interesting to have something different, and I thank Mrs. Cassandra for bringing this forward, and I welcome all of you to bring interesting cases forward that you want to find out more about, that could have a little hook, knowing that I do focus mostly on the legal hook of things, but something like this that played so quickly, I do think there's a lot here to follow and look at. But there's quite a few interesting things, especially the time difference, the big lapse of time between victim number 2 and victim number 3. Quite interesting. That he stayed in all one area, and we still are waiting to hear about the evidence and the arraignment and all, which will happen Tuesday. So as I find out more, you'll be getting brief updates as we go on other shows. But that's our show for today. Thank you for joining me on the second Sunday, also known as Monday to some people who don't go with my plan. But with all of that, thanks again. And I'll be seeing you all really soon. I will be putting out a Masterson update in a brief Manson one during the week. I'm just not sure on the day yet, but I'll see you soon.